We're in.
Ben, how you doing?
Yeah, keeping good. How are you, buddy?
I'm all right. It's looking nice and sunny where you are.
Yeah, it is, mate. The one day of the year we've got sunshine on the Fylde coast, but I can see a big old grey cloud coming over. So it'll probably go dark and grey and gloomy in a minute. So I'll make the most of it while it's here.
Yeah, to be expected. Well, nice to see you. So we've got another podcast ahead of us.
Another podcast, mate. Another podcast. I was saying, when we did last week's episode, episode 4, when I was doing like the little quick intro before the official recording, I was like, welcome to episode 4. I was like, wow, episode 4, that's 4 weeks. That's a month worth of podcasting content. How quick has that gone? Like, it's unbelievable.
I was the same, mate. It was the first time I looked at our channel yesterday and I saw like all of our podcasts. I was actually building up a little bit of content there. It's great.
It is, mate. It is. And it's just... it's crazy, like how it goes from sort of inception to, wow, we've actually got a podcast and people are actually tuning in and feeding back and people are actually reaching out. And it's just bizarre how quickly it starts to cascade and how it starts to build. I think there's a lesson in there, though, because before we started recording today, mate, we was talking, weren't we, about how we've kind of built the podcast up and how when we first did it, it was literally, I was at a football match watching my kid kicking a ball around on a Saturday morning. And I was like, do you fancy doing a podcast? I've had a few ideas for the first few episodes. I reckon we should follow this and that. He was like, yeah, okay, mate, no problem. Should we do the first one on Tuesday? And it's just gone from there. So there's a lesson there that getting started is the key, isn't it? Like, don't overthink it. 100%. Don't over-engineer it. Just crack on and fail forward. And that's effectively what we're doing every week, failing forward.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm a massive believer in that now, having learned not to be. I've always been like a perfectionist before. As basically, I've probably nearly launched 10 perfect businesses before, but I've never launched them because I've never gotten to perfect.
Yeah.
So I'm nearly there, still got more work to do. But yeah, we've very much just flung ourselves at this. It's great.
We really have, mate. We really have. But the feedback's been awesome, man. I don't know if you had many people reach out or send you a message directly, but I've had a few now and it's been very complimentary. So, it's always good to see and to know that people are listening and getting value from it. Because we always said, didn't we? We have these conversations and these catch up most weeks anyway. So if one person tunes in and gets some sort of value from it or decides to take action that's going to shape their career, then it was definitely worth hitting the record button. So it's always heartwarming to see those responses.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, on that, I guess you would be as well, because we're coming to the end of our, I think we've only got a couple more to do on our original plan. Like, I'd be really interested to know what anybody else wanted to know, because we're kind of answering the questions that we think people have about self-employed agency. But yeah, I'd be really interested to know if somebody's got any particular questions or, a particular topic. And maybe if anyone's got any specific questions, we'll try and work it into future podcasts or maybe even make it the subject of one as well. I'd be very happy to do that.
Absolutely, 100%. And we was talking about this, weren't we, when we said your audience gives you content ideas, when we're saying that agents always start and don't know where to kick off with growing the social channels and they don't know what to say. I guess this is us kind of eating our own cooking when it comes to that. So yeah, for sure, anyone listening, wherever you're up to, if you have got any burning questions or problems or niggles or concerns, then obviously mine and Scott's emails in the show notes, so feel free to reach out or via social media with any questions and we'll make sure we get those topics covered. But anyway, mate, pod to one side for a minute. How's your week been since we last caught
up? I've got to be honest, haven't I? Right. So I made the mistake on a very rainy Sunday of downloading Football Manager. I know you're not a football man, but you must have heard how much people's lives that game takes over. I'm really embarrassed about it. I haven't played it for about 7 or 8 years. And it was just, it was hammering it down here Sunday. The kids were out and I was like, yeah, I'm just going to download it. And I did. And yeah, I'm not really sure where the last 2 days have gone, to be honest with you, mate.
Mate, as you told me you downloaded Football Man, I'm pretty sure I heard Victoria's eyes rolling in the background already.
Oh, so. No, she's very pro me finding something to do that keeps me out of everybody's way, to be honest with you. But yeah, mate, I don't know. I hugely procrastinated yesterday. Sunday was a complete write-off, so I've I've banned myself from it today so I can try and turn it around and start doing some work. But I'm not going to be too hard on myself. I had like a year and a half with 1 day off every week, so that's not too bad one day. But yeah, what about you, mate? You got much going on?
Yeah, well, I've not had the luxury of getting out of bed at 1 o'clock in my pants and opening a can of Coke and sitting on footy man all day, unfortunately. I've been a bit busy than that, but not as hectic as I was the week before. It's been a bit more of a mellow 7 days, I reckon, since we'd last caught up, which is nice. And actually, the week ahead that we're facing now, I had a really busy week on paper, plenty of filming, 2 listings coming on, which is, 2 take-ons doesn't sound like a lot, I'm guessing, for most people listening into this, but because of the nature of how we do things, a take-on is a full 9 till 5 days work, facing in front of a camera, talking on repeat. So it's very cognitively exhausting. And we did a take-on yesterday, went really well. And then we had one booked in for Wednesday. They've rescheduled, but mate, I was just buzzing when they rescheduled. I was like, oh my God, that frees up my Wednesday. So
Yeah,
now I've got a day to get some headspace, catch up on admin and emails, take care of all those jobs that I've been putting off for a while. Probably do a few skip runs. We're clearing out the house and redecorating and all that kind of good stuff. And then I've blocked out Friday. I go away next week, as you know, to the Lake District. We've got a little Airbnb booked, so I've blocked out Friday again just to kind of get ahead of the weekend. So I've got quite a nice week looking forward. So I might even get on a bit of footy man myself, mate, and try
don't do
try and
it,
give you
mate.
a run for your money.
Don't do it. I'm so embarrassed. I nearly covered it up with a lie. I was going to say, yeah, I did. Loads of prospecting yesterday. I thought, no, that's not what this thing's about. So, hands up.
What
Make
I
up
will
for
say though, just to give a quick plug to this, I did go out to a valuation between our last chat and this one, and I can honestly say, mate, I've seen some beautiful houses over the last year, but this one, like, it takes a lot to impress me now with properties because I've been spoiled a bit. So
Yeah,
whereas at the start I was blown away every time I seen something new, whereas now it has to be something special for me to be lost for words. And this one really left me lost for words. So look out for
yeah,
the video for this one coming soon, mate. It's got the nicest kitchen I have ever seen, like unbelievable. So I'm excited.
really.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to
How
it.
much is that one, Ben? Can you
Well,
say?
mate, believe it or not, it's about 650, 675. So not like mega money, like a expensive for the market that I'm in, but probably comparative to the markets of other people listed in, you probably wouldn't get a flat for that in some places down south. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Wow.
it's a pretty special house. So I'm looking forward to that one.
Can't wait to see it, mate. I'm sure you've done it justice.
Well, I hope so, mate. I hope so. We'll see how it all comes out. But anyway, mate, so today's show, we're on episode 5, which, according to my basic notes, means that today we're talking about creating leverage in your estate agency business. So as ever, guys, if you're here, if you're listening, if you're tuning in now, 5 weeks in, we both appreciate it. Thanks for being the extra person at the table. And this is hopefully a value add episode because leverage is massive, and it's something that I've definitely struggled with in the past, especially when you're the business owner at the helm, because there's this element of control where you feel as though you need to be the one in charge of doing job A, B, C, D, E, F, every single letter of the alphabet. Whereas in reality, there's a lot to be said for outsourcing or bringing people in, building a team, recruiting, to kind of allow you to buy back some time, and in some cases bring people in who are better than you at that particular task. So that was a massive paradigm shift for me, realizing that I don't have to do anything, and actually it's more productive to let other people help me rather than trying to do everything myself and spin 1,000 plates and do everything to an average or below average level. But it took a lot for me to create leverage in my business and become comfortable with doing that. So I don't know what your experience is, Scott. Like, I know you've had your own businesses in the past, recruitment, you've done some property work, you've got your own business now. Have you always been a bit of a master of your own destiny and felt as though you've had to take care of every single job yourself, or is leverage something that's been big for you over the years?
Well, up until in previous businesses, I've tried to just keep hold of everything, but to my sort of as a negative, really, because now I'm really learning. I mean, outsourcing for me is massive, mate. So I outsource quite a few parts of my business. I've had people do my social media. I've had people manage my sales progression for me. I mean, essentially now the question I ask myself is, are you the best person to do this job? And if you're not, then get somebody else to do it for you, quite frankly. And I mean, there might be parts where you might be the best person to do the job, but have you also got the time to do it as well as that, right? So the question isn't in isolation, are you the best person to do viewings? I'm sure you are. But are you the best person to do viewings given your time constraints? The answer to that might well be no, right? Because it's all well and good getting if somebody gets 100% of Ben Moore on a viewing, I'm sure they'd be really impressed. But if they get Ben turn up who's got 15 minutes and then he's got to fly up the road to show another one, then they're probably not getting the best version of you. So I ask myself the question now, am I the best person to do it? Another question is, if the second best person does it, what's the outcome? And again, I know that, I think there is something to be said for doing viewings and being experienced and having the benefit of your experience and maturity and all those good things. But what is the worst that's going to happen if the second best person does a viewing, right? Chances are the house, they're either going to want it or they're not, I think. And I'm sure there's people be screaming listening to that. But, I think 95% of the time, someone knows if they want a house, regardless of who's showing it, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it does divide opinion, that thing about, because I'm quite open, and I actually say this to my clients. Like I'll always say, like, I don't want to render myself useless or come across like you don't need me, because that's not what I'm here to do. But I think the truth is that you go into a property and it sells itself to an extent. It doesn't matter how good of a salesperson you are. If that third bedroom's too small, if the location's not right, if the garden isn't where they thought it was, it's you can't fix those uncompromisable things that a buyer's looking for to make that a suitable property. I think the difference on the viewing is maybe the reputation it leaves your brand, because the amount of viewers that I speak to where they're like, oh my God, I can't believe that the lease terms and the service charges. I can't believe that which way the garden's facing. I can't believe the reason for the vendor's sale, because the amount of properties we've viewed and agents just haven't had a clue. They've literally come and opened the door, let us in, and that was it. They couldn't answer any questions. And that seems to be, unfortunately, quite common from what I'm getting from buyers. So I think there's definitely a reputational thing that goes along with making sure that someone's there to do your viewings who can actually answer questions and, I guess, carry through the continuity of the standards that you expect from your brand and your business. But I think when it comes to the actual result, even if you do an awful viewing, if that's an amazing house and it ticks that customer's boxes, they're going to buy it,
Yeah. But leverage there. So this is where you've got the way up, right? Because the leverage is, if we just talk in percentage terms, so you on a viewing is 100%, like the best situation is you going on a viewing. You've listed a house, you're on the viewing. That's like 10 out of 10 agency. It's the best you can do. Sending out somebody else might be at 7 out of 10. But if that then frees up 30-40% of your week, that enables you to be out in front of more vendors, or able to spend a bit more time on your video, or presenting yourself more on social media, or just generally being present in the community, whatever it might be, then the way up there is it worth lowering the standard of viewing by 30% to then be able to give more of Ben Moore throughout the week, right?
Sure.
And that's the way up. I mean, I wouldn't suggest doing it to then have more time off, or not put that time to good use. That's the other key as well, isn't it? You have to look at the time you're now saving and work out how you're going to spend that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, big time. And I think the other question is asking yourself, it's not always just like a quality thing. Am I the best person for this? Because I think in a lot of cases, when you're the business owner, when you're passionate and it's your reputation, it's your face, it's your name above the door, as you alluded to yourself, generally speaking, you probably will be very good at doing certain tasks because you simply care more. And there's a lot of merit for that. But then the other question is the task at hand something that can be leveraged, or does it absolutely need your attention? So, for example, Scott, it doesn't matter how much me and you, I'm not saying that we don't, but let's just say, for example, we woke up one day and said, I couldn't think of anything worse than doing a podcast today. We can't outsource this podcast to anyone else because people are tuning in because they've become accustomed to our dialogue. So it absolutely needs Ben and it needs Scott. We can't leverage that. We've got to be there. The same with me with my property tour videos. They've got accustomed to seeing me doing the escape to the filed video features. I can't outsource the video feature to a different presenter because my business has been built around me presenting. But I absolutely can outsource the editing of this podcast. I can outsource the filming and the editing of the property tour videos. I can outsource my admin, putting my memorandum of sales together, processing offers, doing AML checks. All these little things can be outsourced, but certain things can't. So I think it's good to have a clear view on what turns the dial most significantly for your business to be conducive towards the goals that you want to achieve. And secondly, does that task rely on you? Or can that be put somewhere else, like you said, so your time can be put to better use, focusing on the things that are more conducive towards turning the wheels to move the business in the direction that you're trying to take it?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, so in terms of outsourcing, then Ben, what do you outsource?
More than I used to. So the biggest thing that I outsourced last year was sales progression. And
Yeah.
that was a tough one for me to do because progression's super important because at the end of the day, that's where we get paid, right? We've already put all the time, the effort, all of our energy, all of our resources, and sometimes heavy investment into getting a house sold. And then once it is sold, it's almost like it's your baby. You've got it a chunk of the way there. And then you want to make sure that you do all you can to nurse that through to completion. But I came to this realization that as important as progression is, and as much as I recognize that that's a really important key part of the job, it's not something that I'm particularly good at, and it's not something that I enjoy. And because I
Yeah.
don't enjoy it, and because I'm not the most organized person in the world and all that kind of stuff, I'm typically not great at it. So I thought, well, if I outsource it, as scary as that feels to do, because I'm putting that whole process in the hands of somebody else who's not the business owner, um, I know that they know the process better than I do. They know solicitors better than I do. They're more organized than I am. They've got incredible reviews and great results. I'm going to outsource it because not only is it going to buy me back my time, it's also going to mean that that job's done to a better standard than I probably can do it because they care about it and they enjoy it more than what I do. So it just made complete sense, as scary as it was, and as much as it's costing me more money to do that for the upside of getting it done better and also giving me back that time.
With that, see, I know who you've outsourced it to because you were kind enough to recommend that person to me, right? So I use that person too for my sales progression. And I remember when I clicked send the first sales memo, I'm like, I hope she calls them and I hope she introduces her, and all these just feelings of like, it was like giving someone your baby to hold, right? And the irony of it is when you hold somebody else's baby, you hold them, you're more careful than your own, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I remember like ironing with my boy in my left arm, and I'd be like ironing away. If someone else gave me their baby, I'd be like, seriously, like, right, this is in safe hands. You're not going anywhere. But you have outsourced to another business owner though, haven't you? And I have. So there's an argument to be said there that actually outsourcing in its own is all well and good, but you have to choose the right partner as well, don't you?
You absolutely do, mate. You absolutely do. And I think, we're talking about leverage, and under the banner of leverage comes outsourcing, comes employing. Do you bring someone in on a salary? Do you pay them a wage and then take responsibility of that liability? Or do you outsource on a case by case basis? And I think in some ways it almost feels safer to employ someone because we feel as though we're retaining almost more control because we're paying that person a wage. So would you say that employing someone's a better way to go because you can manage it closer and maybe you've got more of an input? And then he's outsourcing. Does it, I don't know if this is just me, but it kind of felt like relinquishing more control than it would if it was an employee. So that was a challenge in itself. But I think for me, when I kind of was really appeased, ironically, one of the first sales that I ever sent to, I'll name her, she deserves a shout out. So Ginny, right?
Yeah, I was
Um,
tempted to. Yeah,
yeah,
but
yeah. So Ginny Walker, for anyone who's looking to outsource the sales progression, I can definitely, me and Scott, definitely recommend Ginny's services.
yeah, 100%.
If you can't find her, feel free to shoot me a message, and I'm happy to make an introduction. It's always good to see, people who are good at what they do doing well. But yeah, I give Ginny the first ever case, and it was just a fucking headache, to be honest, mate. It was just like a chain with about, honestly, like I agreed the sale and the chain was so long. I was like, this isn't going to go through. Like, there's too many moving parts. I'm talking like a 12-person chain. It was absolutely enormous. And there was a couple of clients down the chain that weren't particularly easy to deal with. There was agents who weren't particularly easy. The solicitors weren't always great. So she had to really juggle a lot of balls and deliver a lot of service calls to gel this sale together. And to this day, I'm convinced if it wasn't for her organization and her diligence and her passion for that job, that sale would have collapsed. And that was a 9 grand fee to me.
Yeah,
So it's a good chunk of cash. Um, and when she looked after that sale, I remember the vendor, a guy called Paul, he called and he was like, "Oh, Ginny's not an employee, is she?" I was like, "No, no, no. She's got her own business. It's kind of outsourced, but we work together really closely." He went, "I tell you what, mate, when you've got a good in there," he said, "I wouldn't have for a second known that that was outsourced. I thought she was, you know, like a co-owner of the business almost. Like she was that great. And as soon as I got that feedback from that one client, I've just been able to rest easy at night, knowing if there's any issues, I know that Ginny's going to take care of it, which was massive peace of mind. And that's why I've got absolutely no qualms in recommending Ginny to people like you, Scott, and other agents in the eXp network who I've put her in contact with, because she is that good. And I think it was you who actually said to me once, we was having a quick call between appointments, and I think it must have been a few weeks after I passed Ginny's number over to you. You said, "Do you know what, mate? There's always this expectation that when you outsource, you expect it's going to be a bit shit, but it's kind of worth it maybe for the trade-off in buying back your time. But not only is it giving my time back, she's actually doing a better job than I can." And when you said that, I was like, wow, that summarizes it beautifully.
Yeah.
So yeah, finding the right people, key.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, it's saying you're going to outsource is all well and good, but I'm not sure, having not dealt with anyone other than her for that particular role, I'm not sure what my experience would have been if I'd have gone somewhere first and had a bad experience. It could have put me off for life. So in a way, what that's taught me is that, first of all, outsourcing, it's not one and two, it's a double-barreled thing. Outsourcing, but with the right partner, is hugely beneficial to your business. I remember it was in October, I put something like £41,000 into my pipeline. It was something like 9 sales. So by November and December, I'm just getting call after call after call from people asking how their sales were going. Now, I didn't notice what was keeping me busy. So at the end of every day, I was going indoors about 8 o'clock, 8:30 at night. I was like, right, guys, I'm, wife, kids, please bear with me. I'm shattered. I've been on the phone all day. And I remember saying, I've literally been on the phone 8 hours out of my 11 hours on the phone.
Oh.
And I just thought I'd been busy. And it was only, I thought I'd have a look through the calls. And like 70, 80% of them were sales progression. And it was at that point I realized, okay, this isn't going to cost me this month, but next month I knew I had a bad sales month coming, because I wasn't listing, I wasn't even driving valuations and doing the things that I know how to do, because I was doing something that, one, I'm not very good at, and B, I don't enjoy. I mean, that's like the worst combination of things, isn't it?
Oh, mate, massively. And that what you just said there, enjoyment, is huge, because you might be fairly decent at something, but if you dread it, if it's like pulling teeth, if you just like snoozing your alarm every morning so you don't have to get out of bed and deal with that particular task, then that's you telling yourself, I shouldn't be doing this job. And it goes back to that whole thing. I know I sound like such a broken record, but building a business by design, the reality is that in every job, in every role, in every business, there's going to be things that you enjoy doing and you're passionate about and, you do for free. And then there are things that are necessary, but you hate. And that's the other side of it as well, isn't it? Like, if you don't enjoy it, then buy some happiness back.
Yeah, well, but sometimes I think, it's all well and good. I mean, it's good. It's you and I saying about outsourcing is all well and good, but we've both got now fairly generous incomes and businesses that are relatively successful, depending on your viewpoint on that. But we're both making good money, so we can comfortably now look at a fee that's £4,000 and think, well, I don't mind paying someone a couple £100 to do my sales progression. I don't mind paying someone a couple of £100 to do my social media. When you first start, I think unless you're coming in with a big budget, there is possibly an argument to say that you might just have to roll up your sleeves and put up with a few tasks that aren't your favorite things, right? Like my worst one, absolute worst one, even above and beyond sales progression, is doing write-ups. Now, I know you like that, don't you?
No, mate, I really
or you
don't.
do a good job of it then.
I'm okay at it, yeah. I mean, do you know what? Funnily enough, I was up until late hours last night doing a write-up for a new listing, and it cost me so much time. Like it really, really does. But because we go balls deep on the videos and the photographs, and the whole message is around premium marketing, it almost feels like you'd let yourself down to do like a generic copy and paste.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, because ultimately the written piece for some people is as important, or if not more important, than the video, because we all absorb content in different ways. Some people prefer a blog than a video. I hate reading personally. That's why I'm all about audiobooks and podcasts.
I can't even take it in. I couldn't even read a property description, and my brain wouldn't
100.
even take in the information.
My concentration just goes like that. Like it goes. So it's not for me, but I'm well aware that there are people out there, particularly at a certain end of the market, where they'll read every word and they'll scan every detail. So it's important that that's right, and it almost builds a narrative and sells tells the story and the location and tells the story of the home in the same way that one of our videos would do. So it's important that I get that right. And because I've been in and because I'm the one who's had conversations with the vendor, because I've done the videos, because I've got to intimately know that property, I kind of feel as though I need to do it. But I do leverage that slightly. So I'll write it up, and I'm not bad with the written word, but I'm awful at punctuation. I'm awful at I repeat myself a lot sometimes, because if you're writing for an hour or two at a time, it's easy to lose your way in terms of, well, I've already used that adjective 15 times already. So my partner, she's got a degree in English language and lit. She's a journalist.
Oh,
She's very well versed like in the written word. So then she'll read over it, she'll tweak it, she'll take bits out, she'll correct things, change the spelling, take out all the commas where they're not needed. So she'll kind of fine tune it and refine it. So it's kind of a joint effort. So I guess I kind of leverage to an extent on that side of things. But yeah, it's something that if I could find someone to do it as well, I'd probably just completely delegate that if I could.
yeah, absolutely, 100%, mate. I would pay somebody. I was thinking about offering like 10% of my fee to anybody who wants to go around, take great photos and do my write-up for me. No problem. Like, all in all, that would probably take someone a couple of hours, and they could earn 400 quid a deal. I'm selling 6-7 a month, so they could have potentially quite a nice little income from a job that I'd imagine, I know people who would think that was a lovely job, taking photos and doing a nice write-up on a beautiful house, especially like the ones you list. Like, some people would really enjoy that. 100%. And that's the funny thing, isn't it? The thought that somebody would actually, it's sometimes hard to imagine why somebody would really enjoy the bits of the job that you don't like, in the same way that a lot of the people that maybe enjoy that part of it, if you said you had to go to somebody's house and pitch and value it and walk into a stranger's house, like my wife said to me a little while ago, like, don't you get nervous when you walk in somebody's house? I was like, don't even think about it. That doesn't even cross my mind. I walk in, sometimes there's like 7 or 8 people in the lounge, like eagerly awaiting evaluation, and I'm probably the most confident. They're probably more nervous than me, you know.
Yeah.
But it's hard to imagine that somebody would not enjoy the bits that you enjoy, and it's hard to imagine that somebody would enjoy the bits that you dread the most, which for me is admin, sales progression, probably anything that requires any level of attention to detail, really.
Yeah. No, I'm exactly the same. I know it sounds quite generic to say, but blokes aren't generally too well organized and great with admin and the fiddly bits, and I've definitely felt, oh, that's been my weakness, but I'm aware of that, and I think it's important to have an awareness of your shortcomings and be okay in owning that. And then again, I think once you've identified what you're good and what you're not, what you enjoy and what you don't, where you're willing to invest your passion and your time and your resources, and where it's through gritted teeth, again, it comes back to that whole thing about building a business that's right for you. And that could be totally different agent to agent, because we've all got different preferences and we all identify with different things that we enjoy and don't enjoy doing.
Yeah. Do you outsource any other areas of your business, Ben, or just the sales progression for now?
Admin, I guess. I mean, even down to this podcast, like I say, I mean, you and I don't do the editing for this podcast. We've got, a chap who works remotely, who edits it. He makes the videos for YouTube. He puts the graphics in the background. We've got someone who does the artwork for the thumbnails, like all these little bits and pieces, which aren't my skill set or your skill set. It'd cost us far too much time and headache and faffing for me and you to do a thumbnail for a podcast. Yeah, it'll take someone else 30 seconds. It's within their circle of competence, and they'll do it fairly inexpensive by our standards for the amount of time that we're going to win back. So those little fiddly bits, it mounts up over time. If we had to do like a graphic every week and edit a video down every week and have my face on the screen when I'm talking and your face on the screen when you're talking and piece all that together, that could be a day's work very easily, mate.
Yeah.
Very easily. So
yes.
So that's what I go down with, because I don't enjoy doing it. I'm not particularly good at it. Obviously, all my videos are outsourced. The guy who does the filming does all the editing. Again, people come to me and they're like, oh, your videos are amazing. Well, it's like, are my videos amazing, or are Michael's videos amazing? I just turn up and talk. He's the one who literally chooses everything from the backtrack down to the filters and the transitions and the format and the order. Like, he designs all of that. So that finished product has come out of Michael's mind, not my mind, because he's far more creative and far more talented than I am at video production. Do you know what I mean? So it's just having that awareness.
I think it's you just have to accept it, really, don't you? And I mean, I like the phrase that you use about business by design, And I think maybe that's why the benefit to designing your business and having an idea of what you want it to look like before you create it is, if you don't do that, you will just get swallowed up. And every day will become another day where you firefight and battle against all the 500 tasks that you've got coming in. And it will be a case of, I'll fix that tomorrow. I'm going to fix that tomorrow. I'm going to start outsourcing next week. I'm going to start, I'm looking at, so I've had a few examples where, I don't know if you've had this, so just going back to like outsourcing sales progression, where you find yourself thinking, oh, well, that's a first time buy on a house and it's no chain. So I won't need to outsource that one because that's an easy one, right? And I've had to be really strict with myself to say, no, so your business by design was that you aren't going to be doing sales progression. And the thought I always have is, if we're allowed to go on holiday in 3 or 4 months' time, if I've got a sales progressor, I'm not getting any calls about solicitors or anything like that for that week, right? So it's the one thing I think, well, a couple £100 for some sales progression, if that means I have a clear mind all holiday, it's well worth it. Like, that's
100%,
seriously good value.
100%, mate. And what price can you put on peace of mind and happiness? Do you know what I mean? Like, to be honest, mate, if you dreaded it and it was just a real thorn in your side and the part of the job that you hated, like, it's worth Ginny could charge 4 times if she's charging it. It'd still be good value for money. I hope Ginny's not listening.
Yeah, don't tag her in.
Don't do that, Ginny.
Yeah, don't tag her in. And also there's the other sort of side of it, that given the time difference, there's every chance I'll be half cut. Like about 20 pina coladas down and somebody is getting impatient about a sale and I'm drunk on holiday trying to deal with it. But it's exactly the thing. So I think it's important to draw lines in the sand over things like that. Well, I'm not getting sucked into any conversation. And if your sales progression is outsourced, you then trust that person. So there's been a few times where I've been tempted to phone like a couple of weeks in and say, how are you getting on with Ginny? It's like, that'll be a disaster. They're just going to tell you all the problems with their deal and you're going to get sucked into, and then there's going to be an element of confusion over who deals with what. I think you just have to trust. And even down to, like you say, the editing of this podcast, we don't have any input in it, right? We just say, look, we trust you, go and get on with it, and it will be 95% what we want.
100%. And that's the big thing as well, like that trust piece. And I ain't liking it to, if you think if someone instructs you as the agent, Scott, you'd like to think that they're choosing you because they identify with the value, the trust that you're going to get the result, the trust in your processes, and they know that you're the best guy for the job. If they leave you to it and you can just do what you need to do, take viewings when you need to take them and negotiate offers your way, it tends to be a much more enjoyable, smoother, better process for everyone. If that client's on your case every 2 seconds saying, well, if I was negotiating this offer, I'd do this. Are you asking these questions on the feedback? Did you do that? Did you show them this when you did the viewing? When you feel micromanaged, it's not as enjoyable. And then you'll find yourself as the business owner, if you're micromanaging everything that you outsource, it defeats the object. You might as well just be doing it yourself anyway. So
exactly, yeah. Which I can see why the temptation exists. I can see why people find it difficult to let go, because I've really, really had to force myself to do it. But I think once you do, you get used to it. And then you find yourself thinking, I don't know about you, but now I'm like, cool, what else can I bring someone in to help me with? How else can I make my life easier or more efficient? And if you're more efficient, in theory, you should make more money anyway, right?
100%. And I don't know about you, but when I'm speaking to new agents considering coming into the framework, Scott, a lot of people, especially when there's children involved and, if they've been in the rat race for the last 15, 20, 30 years, a big thing for them is a better work-life balance. And this model 100% can give you a better work-life balance if you get your systems right and if you're clear on what you want to achieve. If you're not, it can easily go the other way and you've got no work-life balance. You're very reactive. You're putting out fires left, right, and center, and you've got more business than what you can handle. And if you're not putting those systems and processes and people in place to help you leverage that business properly, it can become hell on earth or it can be a paradise, depending on how you dial it in.
Yeah. And this is the interesting thing is, all my career, I've had this sort of figure in my head of wanting to earn 100 grand, right? And I've never done it before. This year, I already know this year from my pipeline and what I've done so far, I know that I suspect I'll earn somewhere in the 140s profit. My business in I think so, yeah. And the interesting thing is, honestly, Ben, if I had to work like I have the last 12 months to earn 140 grand a year every year, I wouldn't do it. hand on heart. So it's like achieving all you've ever wanted to, which for me was going into the 6-figure self-employed bracket. It's all I've ever wanted to do. I would not do 10 years of working like I have the last 12 months.
Because it's not worth the trade-off in terms of...
It's not worth the trade-off. It's not worth the trade-off. But that's how you know, starting your first year in business is the hardest, right? And this year is already proving, you know, I've got such momentum, as I think you do, that I won't be working as hard this year. But even still, that's why I'm looking to delegate and outsource so many parts of my business so that I actually can go down to, you know, I start work at 10 now. I start work at 10 every day, 10 a.m. I go to the gym, drop my kid at school at 8:15. I then go to the gym for an hour and I start work at 10. Now, again, if certain parts of my business, like sales progression, you know, if you're ever going to get 8:30, it's somebody asking, what do you know about my exchange? Or what do you know about this? What do you know about that? Which is why I've outsourced that part of my business so that I've got that just a little bit of control back over my time, which hopefully isn't going to be a dip in income, but will free up a lot more time to enjoy the results, really, mate, because that's what it's all about, isn't it? I mean, money's lovely to have, but if you haven't got time to actually enjoy it, then what's the point?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that, mate. And it comes back to that thing about having that vision, that long-term vision, not getting too caught up in the macro goal that you forget about the day-to-day tasks that you need to do, but being very aware of ultimately where you want that business to be in a year or two, or having some kind of, you know, indication in your own mind's eye of where it needs to go to. And then you can start being more deliberate in putting those processes in place to get to the fortunate position that we're at now, where you can start your day at 10 o'clock. You can have your weekends off if you need to. Whereas if we'd have got bogged down in just chasing volume and not dialing our fees in and not creating leverage and bringing in people to outsource and delegate to, then we wouldn't have time to do an hour podcast every week, mate, because you'd just be out constantly back to back doing appointments, dealing with calls, and frankly, trying to cater for bullshit 24/7, which isn't my idea. And I don't think many people's idea of a fun business, but a business that's very easy to create by default if you've not got an element of vision and process in place to take it down the right path.
Yeah.
Now, let's segue on this conversation slightly, mate, and let's kind of take this to the business that we and you know and love in eXp, because leverage is one of the biggest points of difference, I feel, in what the eXp framework can give a prospective agent versus being completely standalone, versus being an employee, and versus one of the other, you know, models that people might consider to be similar in terms of self-employed agency. I always say that they're not similar because once you look under the bonnet and once you kind of really explore the finer details of the frameworks, there is literally nothing else on this planet that comes close to the eXp framework in terms of not necessarily just building an agency business, but also creating leverage to get time back and have other streams of income. And me and you, Scott, we're two people who kind of identified the opportunity fairly early on. We've worked really hard over the last year. And now, as well as selling our houses and being successful agents, we've also leveraged the eXp framework to buy back more time and create a residual income stream. So that's something else that I want to touch on, and we call that internally revenue share. So tell me what you know about rev share, Scott. I'll let you take the limelight.
Rev share, right? Okay, where to go? So this is, I mean, me and you absolutely live and breathe it now, don't we? But although I think the irony of it is, although we're so entrenched in it now, Ben, before I sort of outline it, was it something you were particularly interested in when you first joined?
No.
Yeah, no. Same. Yeah, same. In fact, I ignored it. And bearing in mind that my profession at the time when I joined eXp was estate agency recruiter, if you're not going to get me interested in rev share, it probably means that most people listening aren't at this stage particularly interested in it. But the irony of it is, for me, it's the biggest opportunity at eXp. So
I wonder why. Why? Before you go into that, why were me and you so against, not necessarily against it, but just completely disinterested in rev share, and now that's changed? Why
wasn't anything to see, was there? I mean, if you think when we first joined, there was no real other agents in the UK. There was nobody else doing rev share above us. I don't think it was pushed particularly hard when we joined. eXp is all about agency. You know, our business doesn't work unless we have great agents bringing in great fees and earning lots of money for themselves. model doesn't work. So that's the priority. So I think even when eXp were talking to us both, I mean, certainly in my conversations, it was way more about how do we make your agency successful. And then I think you've got this other side piece called RevShare, that if you, once you've got your agency up and running and your agency is successful, you've then got the opportunity to add this sort of side hustle to the business. And just to explain to anybody who doesn't know, it's all about attracting agents. The best way eXp can attract agents to join is to have as many agents being successful within the model as possible. We then hope that agents reach out to us and are keen to join. When you do join eXp, you would look to assign a sponsor or a mentor or somebody that's going to help you launch your business. So I know that you and I, Ben, have a similar amount of people that have chosen us. Agents would then nominate Ben or myself, and I would then hold their hand through the launching of their business and give them some guidance in how I made a success of my business, or just as importantly now, how I've seen other people at eXp make success of their business, because we are learning from one another. Agents then come on board. They then they work on the same 70-30 basis as the rest of us. The difference with eXp and any other model is, of that 30%, 2/3 of that nearly goes back to agents within the business. So if I bring on an agent who, I brought on an agent last year, for example, we use a name called Gavin Mills. He comes on, hugely successful, doing, 15 grand a month or whatever he's doing on average. Gavin then, out of his 70-30 split, he retains 70%. The 30% then gets divided up mainly amongst agents. So I would earn around about £2,800 if I can help Gavin turn over 80 grand. In a nutshell. But as well as I do, Ben, we could do like a 5-hour podcast on the intricacies of RevShare, because it's quite a fascinating subject, really.
And just to kind of echo what you said there with a different slant, what I really love about RevShare, and kind of speaking for myself, the reason why I wasn't interested from the outset was because, like you say, I was aware of it, but it wasn't, as it never is. It's never forced on agents. It's an option. It's not an obligation. You can choose to explore it and leverage it if you see the value. If you don't, then that's actually, that's fine as well. But when I came in, my model was to build an agency business. I wanted Ben to be as successful as Ben could be in Blackpool. I wanted to concentrate on giving the best service and the best marketing that I possibly could for a small portfolio of clients on the Fylde Coast. That was the goal. Now, my head turned because, as a byproduct of me selling those properties, I had agents reaching out to me to ask about eXp. And because I didn't really understand revenue share, because I didn't see the opportunity and I didn't see any intrinsic benefit, I wouldn't say that it was a headache having these conversations, because it's always great to network with like-minded agents and speak to other ambitious entrepreneurs. But I was very much having those conversations to benefit them, to help them in making a decision, rather than seeing any sort of selfish benefit for my business. So I was having these conversations anyway, because agents were reaching out to me mainly through LinkedIn, but sometimes on Facebook as well. And then I started seeing people coming in that I'd sponsored into the business, and then agents who I didn't sponsor into the business all over the country joining us. And I've seen all these people building incredible agencies without the barrier to entry that they normally would have historically. And because eXp were removing all these barriers, the financial barrier to entry was giving people education and support. It was giving people almost like a little wolf pack, really, a little support system to help them on the way. I kind of really bought into that ideology, and I started to see people create incredible lifestyles for themselves off of the back of leveraging our framework. And how can you not fall in love with that process? And as I started having more conversations, and as agents internally were reaching out, asking for help and support and advice, and what apps do you use? How do I create video? How do I get my fees up? I was just having these conversations weekly, and totally started to fall in love with the notion of helping other people be successful and be the best version of themselves. And then, of course, as time starts to tick, as you mentioned yourself, from eXp's 30%, and that is the real benefit, you're helping people effectively as almost like a mentor, or like a distant business partner almost. You're helping these people to achieve new heights and performing their agency at zero cost to them. So they're getting the same 70% that I get and you get. It's costing them nothing at all to pay for my time. I'm getting rewarded from EXP's 30%. So it's a win for me because I'm making money. It's a win for the agent because they're having tremendous success and free mentorship. And it's a massive win for EXP because they're getting incredible organic growth and only paying me a fee if it is there's a completion fee to share. So once I kind of understood the mechanics and the fact that it was a win-win-win on every side, I was just thinking, wow, this is just such an insane model. And then, of course, the beauty is that the agent goes ahead, they get the confidence, they build a business, they start generating more leads, they really learn how to spread the wings and fly and do their thing and continue to have success in their market. Yet, because we was that initial sponsor, we'll continue to see a residual income from that from EXP every time the agent transacts for the rest of their lifetime, which is incredible to think that you can. I don't like using the term passive income because it sounds a little bit sort of, Tony Robbins-esque, sort of
Well,
ultra.
yeah, but I don't use passive income. I probably have done in the past, but I don't anymore. I'd liken it to, it's about as passive as like a buy to let is, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's what I would say. Is in, eventually when you get buy to let, you're heavily involved in refurbishing it, which is sort of the equivalent of bringing an agent on board and helping them with all their compliance and bits and pieces. Eventually, then they will go off and they'll require you much, much less. And then the boiler might break, which is somebody calling up going, Ben, I've had a fall through $5,000. And which is when you're then looking to use your experience, say, look, calm down. I know you have, but you've still got a 50 grand pipeline. And you told me last year you wanted a 40 grand one by the end of the year. So you're still way ahead, and just maybe use a bit of guidance and a bit of, it's experience really, isn't it? I mean, I've got experience now that I didn't have this time last year for two reasons. One, I've been a self-employed agent for 18 months now, and I've had every up and down you can have over that period of time. But secondly, much like you are, we're both in similar positions here in that you've got this network of agents you've introduced to EXP. So I'm talking to those people all the time. So a lot of the time I'm actually passing on to agent B the experience of agent A. I might be saying, look, listen, I know you've had this issue, or someone, Jane had that before and this is what she did and it worked great. And so actually, in a way, even within, you said Wolfpack, which I think is a really great sort of way to look at it. You've got all the collective experiences of all the other agents that within your network to share with someone when they're having an issue.
At, by the way, zero cost to the transaction agent, because if you wanted all those years served, if you wanted those insights, if you wanted to shorten that learning curve, if you wanted that advice from someone that experienced in an external world, Scott, we could be charging thousands of pounds a month for that value, yet they get it for free because of the way that EXP has structured it and incentivized us as the sponsor to earn income. So it's just mind blowing. It's just such an intelligent model, I feel, in that respect. And
it's so smart, and every time you try and find an angle to pull it, or to, because I mean, a lot of myths in there around rev share that I'm sure we'll cover on another podcast. But essentially, the main thing it comes down to is, first of all, it's about attracting agents. It's not recruitment. The best way to attract, I've attracted more agents by telling people that I'm going to earn 140 grand at EXP than I ever could by breaking down the model to them. Because they'll see that and people want that, so they're attracted to the model, which I guess is much the same as you, isn't it? People see you producing the videos and the success you've had and want to sort of follow in your footsteps, if you like. So if I wasn't an agent and I saw your videos online, Ben, sure, I'd be definitely reaching out to you to find out more about it. You wouldn't need to come to me.
No, exactly. That's been huge. And again, it goes back to what we said about building brands. When we was kind of reflecting back on our own stories over the last year, and I sort of mentioned that from day one, I was going all in on social media and sharing loads of videos and giving loads of advice. And I had to go through that cycle of 6 to 9 months of no one caring before clients started realizing actually his videos are a bit of all right. And then I started getting vendors inquire organically, and that's been a real fluent lead source for my agency operation. Same with RevShare. You put in a lot of content out there, you put in a lot of advice, you're giving insights into the industry, you're sharing value, sharing the property tours, showing what's possible, how you've built your business. And the same way that vendors connect with that message to sell their home, agents connect with that message to build their own business and to sort of drive their goals forward into reality. And it's kind of worked the same on the two aren't mutually exclusive. They work together incredibly coherently well. And when I'm succeeding on agency and selling properties, it tends to, as a byproduct, either help and give value to other agents who are already in the model by seeing success leaving clues, or it's bringing other agents into the fold who have seen that, and that's been their catalyst of inspiration for them to think, do you know what, I could do that. If Ben can do that, I can do the same. And then that's prompted them to take that first step. And eventually, as we've seen in many cases now, go ahead and start their business and have similar success in their markets.
Yeah. I
But
think it's, sorry, no, go on, Ben, after you.
no, I was just going to say though, one thing that you said there that I wouldn't challenge you on, because you're dead right in what you said. That whole thing about it's not recruitment, it's attraction. It is, but I'm also completely like cool with the word recruitment. And I think recruitment, it's got like a tarnished reputation. It's got a bad rep. It's almost like, oh, why you're recruiting? Like, you should be focusing 100% of your time on selling houses. Don't be recruiting. And it's like, well, let's just look at any successful business in the history of time. Let's just use Purple Bricks as a high profile example. Okay, there's been hundreds, if not thousands of agents by this point passed through that model over the course of the last 6 or 7 years. Now, the people who did incredibly well from that business are Michael and Kenny, because they were the ones who were, educating people on Purple Bricks. They were bringing in those first agents. They were driving recruitment. They was doing that to build the team and build the business. They've eventually sold it and off they go into the sunshine, right? eXp gives you the opportunity to be the Kenny and Michael of your business. So one of the main reasons why I know for a fact I'll be here long term, Scott, and I've got that entrepreneurial disease, we can call it, where I'm always looking for that next step and how can I innovate? How can I develop this? How can I, achieve that next milestone in my business, in my career, whatever it is. And 100%, I would have at some point wanted to set up Moore's Property Group and then been my own eXp equivalent. But the reason why I don't need to do that is because eXp gives me the freedom to build my own team within a team, if that makes sense, and still have that benefit of being able to leverage a team and help people and have that mentorship piece and fulfill that role and hit those goals without taking on all the crazy expense and hassle and headache and legislation and all those pain points of doing it without the support of the eXp structure. And for me, that's mind blowing. It gives you the opportunity to be top of your own tree, I guess, if you want to look at it that way, to be the Kenny and Michael of your own business. And much to say, I use Purple Bricks as an example there, but Adam, when he started Hatched, Adam was the one who recruited agents, he built Hatched, and he's the one that when it sold, he got a big payout and off he went into the sunset. It's the same. And I think being able to position yourself in that role and be a true business owner and create real leverage is the difference between being a business owner and being a self-employed agent.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a huge thing. I mean, you can be self-employed, but it's a job, or you can be self-employed and it's a business. And it's a business if you can walk away from it and continue to make money. It's a job if you can't. If you're a painter and decorator and you're self-employed, you're only making money the days you go to work and paint and decorate, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. That's your job. You work hard. That's how that works. But you're stuck doing that until forever, essentially. There's no get away from the fact that you're on a day rate and you're self-employed and you're just paying yourself. So what you've got there is you've got a self-employed job. The difference between having a self-employed job and being a business owner, I'm not a massive. I try not to say like join us and become a self-employed estate agent, because I think you're far more than that. You're joining eXp and becoming a business owner. And the reason you're becoming a business owner is because you take it in so many different directions, and you can get off the bus and it will carry on without you. Whether that be for a short period of time or potentially when it comes to retirement or, a longer period of time. You and I are both in positions now where we could probably have the summer off and continue to earn money. Okay, we'll earn more money if we're here, but the business will carry on. That's the difference between being a job that you're self-employed in or having your own business.
Yeah.
You have to be able to get off it and it carry on. Has to have momentum.
Mate, that's massive. And I think it's I see a lot of the different hubs talking about making that same comparison that you just did, be a business owner, not a self-employed agent. But actually, when we look under the bonnet, I only see that we're the ones given that true sense of being able to leverage the framework to be a business owner
Yeah.
and to not be on the hamster wheel of having to turn up for every viewing and do every valuation and be there to sell properties. And there's nothing wrong with that. I know there's agents in our framework now, all they will ever do until the day that they die is sell houses because they're so passionate, they love it, they enjoy it. It literally runs through their veins, and that's amazing. They can do that. But for me,
Yeah,
I'm
good for
someone,
them.
yeah, 100%, 100%.
Yeah.
And you've got to respect that hustle, and they'll earn a lot of money in the process. Like, fair play to them. Like, one person already has hit 100K in a first year. Do you know what I mean? 12 months from a cold start. So you can't knock that for a second. You can do nothing but respect that. But for me, someone who, I don't mind saying, and I've been upfront with my clients, I don't want to be selling houses for the rest of my life. I don't want to be doing every viewing for the next 15 years. I don't even want to be in the same location. You know, I was in the industry press the other week because I've made this very public commitment to my missus that at some point we're going to move away from the coast and we're going to live in the countryside, and you know, we're going to get our dream home, a quaint little cottage in nice rolling hills with open fields and green surroundings, and that's my goal. But I can't achieve that if I'm shackled to one location to earn an income and sell properties for the rest of my life. And the only reason I can make that public announcement of wanting to relocate to Cumbria or wherever we choose to move in a few years' time is because revenue share gives me that opportunity to leverage the eXp framework to remove myself from a fixed market and effectively work from anywhere, knowing that I'm still getting paid, you know, 5 figures a month without having to, you know, sell a single house if I choose to do so. Now, I might move to Cumbria and I might decide to start selling Lake District properties, and I might still sell houses for the next 15 years. But the key is, Scott, that'll be a choice. It won't be
That's why,
forced on me.
yes, that's what I picked up on. It's the choice to do so. You know, I was having this conversation in the car again with my wife, and she said, "Oh, it's funny, the CXP thing." She said, "To be honest, I sort of rolled my eyes when you said you were going to do another thing that's £150 a month." She said, "It made no sense to me whatsoever." And so it's funny, really, because it's probably the least interested she's been in a new business I was starting, and it's the one that's gone the best. So
Yeah.
just, you know, by chance. And she said, "Well, really, I always knew you should have done agency. I knew you should have started your own estate agency before." And I said, "Yes and no." And I said, "I've kicked myself for about 10 years. Every year, I think I should have started an agency the year before, should have started agency before." The difference with this is now, instead of kicking myself, I didn't start last year or the year before, I'm absolutely delighted I never started before. Because if I started 3 years ago, I would still have another 7 years left on a brick and mortar shop that I would have felt was, you know, obligatory. I would have had staff. I would have been looking to go on holiday in the summer and having to bring someone in to help manage the business while I was away. I'd probably have to do an hour call every morning and every night to see how it's going, and you know, all those things that come with that. That was my dream before. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's. I think that's, if you can make a success of that, it can be great. I just think this is better. It's certainly better for me. I mean, you know, now I'm in a position as you are where I've got, probably not meant to say numbers, but around about 40 agents in my network that are all benefiting, hopefully, from my experience, all running successful businesses. And I'm earning a very, very small percentage from each of those. But it adds up to me now that it's a generous income, you know, to the point that you and I were talking earlier about what does next summer look like. I think next summer for me looks like going to Asia for 6 weeks or something like that, you know, ticking off things that I've always wanted to do that I wouldn't have been able to have done if I'd have gone down the traditional brick and mortar office route.
100%. And this is just a wild example. This isn't going to happen, but it could happen mathematically and financially. So, you know, I've got this thing about like being a bit of a free spirit. As I just said, I want to move up to the countryside. We love rural surroundings. Anytime we get together as a family is spent outdoors with muddy boots, right? That's just what we're about as a family. That's when we're at our happiest. I literally turned around and said to Becky, this was literally about 2 days ago, and I said, well, we've got equity in the house. I don't need to sell houses anymore, like, because revenue share is giving me the leverage now where I've got more than a full-time income. If I sell houses, that tops it up and takes it to a great income. But if I don't sell houses, we're looked after financially. I don't have to invest a single hour into doing a viewing anymore. I said, why don't we just buy like a massive motorhome? Like literally, like we'll homeschool the kids. Like one day we'll teach them maths in Scotland. Like we might stay in the Highlands for a week. Then we can drive down to Cumbria and we can stay in Cumbria for a fortnight. And you can homeschool. I'll look after my agents and mentor people in eXp and help them sell more houses in their market. And we'll be the benefactors of that. But as a result, we can literally live between all corners of the country and just live on the road. Like let's just do that. And I was being dead serious because wherever I've got an internet connection, I can do that. And
Yeah.
she's just looking at me like I've got two heads. Obviously, it's another crazy idea. Are you ridiculous? I couldn't can't take three children out on the road. That's
I'm about to say I do like this
uh,
idea. We'll be in the motorhome. I'll be driving and chilling out in front and chatting with agents. You
yeah,
can be homeschooling the kids in the back.
Well, that's an example of me leveraging Becca.
Very
to
generous
look
of you,
after my
Ben. Yeah,
kids. Yeah.
very generous.
So obviously, when I started looking at the practical benefits, I was like, yeah, that was probably a bit pie in the sky, but the theory would work. Yeah, I could effectively leave Blackpool today, get a motorhome, bugger off to the Highlands of Scotland, and just camp out up there for the rest of my life, knowing that I've got a solid income coming into the bank every month, and that I can't think of anything more liberating, and I can't think of a better example of freedom than exactly that. Whereas if you go down the conventional route of, oh, my idea of being a business owner is to have 3 branches and 3 branch managers, then an area manager, and then sitting under those people, we're going to have, the senior branch managers, the branch managers, the senior valuers, the negs, the admin assistants, the viewing reps. You've got all these people. It's a lot of mouths to feed. It's a lot of responsibility. It's a lot of expense. It's a lot of hassle. It's a lot of management. There's sick days. There's office politics. There's organising the Christmas do. There's all these things that, believe me, when you kind of really whittle it down, being a business owner conventionally isn't the sense of freedom that you think it is at the start of your journey. And we can say that now with hindsight, being that I've built a business with bricks and mortar offices, with staff that I've had to pay, with teams that I've had to scale and look after, and all the politics and the dramas that comes with that. It's not quite the easy ride at the top that I think a lot of people perceive it to be when they're climbing the mountain, if that makes sense.
And the interesting thing is that I sometimes think like there's no cockiness or arrogance from me that I'm doing this eXp thing. Like it was by chance. And I could have easily gone down the other road and I would have never known what I was missing out on. So, that's how this, there's a certain humility with it in the fact that I stumbled across it by chance. I would never have come up with this business model on my own. Yeah. Somebody way smarter than me had to come up with it. Way smarter. Thank God they did. Scott, and I'm the beneficiary of that, as are you.
Scott, the model is so clever. Genuinely, in my tiny brain, it took me I'd say about 8-9 months to actually understand it.
Grasp it, yeah, same.
It really did. It really did. And this is why I think sometimes when agents reach out and I'm talking to them and they're like, oh, well, I've got a bit of an understanding. I've seen a few of your posts. Can you just talk me through the model? It's like, I say, look, I'm going to try and break this down as well and as clearly as I can. And it's not that I'm trying to speak to you like you're a bloody child or like you're stupid. It's just that there's just so many like great benefits and things that you should be aware of. I want to kind of try and articulate it in a way that you're going to understand without absolutely overwhelming you with information. And it's a tricky balance, but you're right. The model is so clever and it's been very much engineered by someone who, quite rightly so, is levels ahead of us in business. But I'm just happy to be a contributor to that and someone who's truly, changing his life for myself and my family as a result of the framework that I've got access to. But much like you, mate, total accident. In fact, if anything, I'd say I approached it with, if I approached it with a degree of skepticism, bloody hell, I know that you did, Scott. I can't even imagine. You're the most skeptical guy on the planet. But I was just very much, when I joined, I was kind of looking for the pitfalls for about 6 months. I was waiting for the catch to come and bite me on the ass. But when I kicked off, I pure and simply did it because I had nothing to lose. I was in a minimum wage job and I wasn't happy. And I thought, you know what? The only way is up. And it turns out that eXp just gave me an elevator where I thought it wasn't quite going to be as great as it's turned out to be. And it's definitely not been without its hard work. But looking back, it's been a completely life-changing move, completely by accident.
Yeah. Ditto, mate. Ditto. I'm not trying to take any credit for the intelligent choice I made a year and a half ago. It was somebody really pushed me into it and I'm glad they did. And I did not come on board. The idea of talking about leverage and a business you can get away from, like a year and a half ago, all I wanted was a good monthly income. And I was prepared to work 70 hours a week for that. It's only now, having got to that stage, like I'm looking for ways to scale my time commitment back a little bit. And it's only at this point that I would have been realizing, if I'd have gone down the bricks and mortar route, or in fact, any other model apart from eXp, frankly, because they don't have the rev share, it's only at this point would I be going, right, I want to scale back my time, and realizing that I had limited options and ways to do that. It's only at this point I would have realized, shit. No, because I'm telling you now that I'm not going to work as hard as I did last year every year for the next 10 years. No way. If we were having this conversation, I was in a bricks and mortar office, I think I'd have far less choice about how to scale it back.
Well, you wouldn't, mate, because, and again, I've been there. Like at one point, my outgoings are about 15 grand a month. I've had that. And it brings with it that sense of pressure that you have to sign everything. Every appointment is like gold. You need to convert everything. You need to be very mindful of your finances and your cash flow. And guess what? As the business owner, you're the last mouth to be fed. Your negotiator comes before you. Your valuer comes before you, paying.
Well, and rightly so. And that's part of the reason why you can't take your foot off the gas. So it's not that I guess in theory you could, but you have a responsibility once you've got a team of employees as well. You can't say, right, this summer's going to be a bit leaner because I think I've worked hard for the last 5 years, so I'm going to take my foot off the gas as a business owner. You can't say that to employed people. They are relying on you to drive the business so they can continue to earn the money that they need to earn, right? And the other thing is as well, in my own business, if I take my foot off the gas, that's only going to affect me. When you take your foot off the gas, when you run your own business with employee and staff, unfortunately, forget the 1 in 100 employee that you can find that won't. The vast majority of people will mirror that. People are not going to do 70-hour weeks while you're swanning around the Highlands in your motorhome.
Yeah.
They're not going to do that. Hey, Ben, hope you have a great day and you had a nice fresh breakfast this morning by the lake and you offer a nice stroll. Just so you know, I'm going to be out door knocking in the rain. Doesn't happen. Doesn't happen.
Does not happen.
Mate, I don't think we realise how long we've been talking. We've done, this is probably our longest pod.
Is it really?
I think so, unless I've mistimed it. But anyone who's still hanging in there listening, like, we're really grateful. I forget when we're chatting that our aim is to have people listening. Like, we literally have exactly the same conversations as we'd be having if we were just on the phone, right? Which is why this is no chore.
100%, mate. I honestly forget that we're recording sometimes. You're generally right, but that must be, give or take, it's got to be around an hour there or thereabouts anyway, if not a touch more. So I think that kind of nicely sort of summarizes, the power of delegation and leverage and why that's important for your headspace, your happiness, but also giving you back some free time so you can actually live your life rather than living to simply work. And hopefully, as a nice little segue to that, as a bit of an eye-opener for anyone out there who's experienced, who's considering starting their business, just one of the clear points of difference between the eXp framework, I guess, and other options that you may be considering in terms of creating true freedom and income by leveraging the framework to get off the hamster wheel, I guess, as a bit of a segue for something you might want to think about, a few years down the line. But Scott, is there anything that you want to add that we've not covered already, or are you quite happy to sign off for a week?
I'm in need of a coffee, mate.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to have to, no, absolutely not. You know me, mate. I could talk about this thing for another 3 or 4 hours quite gladly. But I think that's enough for today, mate. It's been a pleasure as ever.
As ever, mate. Thank you. And I'll see you on the next one. Cheers for listening, guys.
Wicked, mate. All right.